SWIFTUI for iOS 18 with Swift 6 and FIREBASE course. In this course, you're going to be learning how to build a fully functional super app. With the super app, you'll be able to create a very robust authentication system in your application with profile management similar to Instagram. And then we'll dive into creating a fully fledged social platform within the same application. After that, we'll create an e-commerce platform that we'll call Cart. Next on, we'll create an Uber Eats like section that we would call Byte. And finally, we'll finish off the course with implementing an Uber rideshare type of feature within the same application. In this first video, you're going to be learning how to create the onboarding section. And we're going to go straight into it. We're going to be using Xcode 16 beta, which was recently released by Apple in WWDC 24. And we're going to go ahead and create a new project. If there are any startup files, all the links will be available right below this video. We're going to be creating just a regular iOS app. We're going to be calling this app Prima. Everything else, you can leave it the same. Just make sure your interface is SwiftUI and your language is obviously going to be Swift. And you're going to be needing an organization identifier. I recommend that you just leave it be your domain name backwards.prima or whatever you're calling the app. You're gonna hit next, and we're gonna go ahead and click create. There you go. We're gonna go ahead and make this full screen for you guys. Let's go ahead and get it all going on all borders. Now it's going to begin by loading SwiftUI previews. And like I said, we're gonna be using the latest of Xcode and SwiftUI. And so a lot of the features which that Apple released, we're going to be diving into a lot of those. Now, I already have the designs to this project, and I'll leave a download link as well below. But we do have a few starter things that we need to go ahead and get out of the way. We need the logo, and we need our blob that we have in the designs. Now, before we can go ahead and start with the starter files, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. And this folder is going to be particularly for just my whole onboarding section. And I'm going to go ahead and create the files that we'll be needing for this particular onboarding section of our application. And so I'm going to just right click on the folder, and we're going to do new file from template. And we're going to make sure it is a SwiftUI view, and we're going to go ahead and hit next. Now we're going to need to call this one something at first, and it's just going to be onboarding view. We're going to go ahead and hit create. And what that's going to do is it's going to create our new onboarding view, and we'll come back to this view very, very soon. We're going to go ahead and create another file from template, and this file will be for our authentication. So we'll call this authentication view. And again, it's going to do the same exact thing. It's going to create it, and we're going to be good to go there. And we're going to be needing one more view. Now everything will make sense if you go ahead and look at the designs that I made. Again, one more view. This will be our profiles view. We'll use this view to manage all the currently signed in profiles. And yeah, everything should fall into place perfectly fine. Now we need to create one more folder, and this will be our main view. For our main view, we're going to go ahead and create a new view, and this new view, we'll call it main view. All right, main view. Now we've gotten pretty much the very bottom of the video today, and so by the end of the video we should have developed all of these files. So we're gonna go ahead and go in order. We're gonna go ahead and start with the onboarding view. Now, like I did mention, we do need startup files, and I'll do my best to kind of walk you guys through the whole entire process of how we do this. And so we have designs over here that I've already prepared in advance, and this kind of gives you an idea of what app we're making here. I didn't want to spoil too much, but I guess you guys get a sneak peek. All right, first of all, we're going to be needing this logo here, and what I'm gonna do for that actually is I'm gonna go ahead and create a new artboard, and I'll just make this artboard maybe slightly bigger than the actual logo is, and we're gonna go ahead and make sure this fills the entire screen at least as much as it can. We're gonna go ahead and center it, and then the next thing is we're going to go ahead and increase the stroke size here because this is our app logo, and then we're gonna make sure this is white. And then with that said, we're gonna go ahead and export it as is. Now to export it, and I'll just give this a name here. To export it, you can mark it here as exportable right here, and then you can go ahead and do export logo. That literally does the exact same thing. And so we'll go ahead and say Premier logo. There you go. Now we're going to be needing this blob here. Excuse me. We're going to be needing this blob here. Now, instead of exporting it, we want to do it in maybe perhaps a different, actually, that is a good one. Yeah, we want to do this differently, right? What we want to do for this one particularly is we want to right click on it, and we want to copy this as SVG. What that's going to do is it's going to take our blob and it's going to give us the highest quality, or at least it's not even about quality. It's going to give us the mathematical buildup of this very vector that we have here. And so we're going to need it. It's going to be pretty useful. So you just, hold on tight, and yeah. Now you want to go ahead and open up your browser here, and we're going to have SWIFTUI to SVG to SWIFTUI converter. And you can just click on the first one, it's perfectly fine, and you hit convert, and it's going to give you a shape, right? And this shape is going to be very important. We're going to go ahead and go back here and we're going to create one more folder, and we'll call this folder custom views. And this is where if we create anything custom, we'll be able to just save it in. And we're going to create a new file in there, same thing we did earlier on, and we're going to go ahead and hit create. Now it's going to create a blob here. Now we don't want this view. We can just click on the whole thing and paste, and what that's going to do is it's going to replace it, and you just go blob, and then you can go ahead and save it. Now the next thing is we're gonna go back to our designs here. We got our logo, we need to import it, and then we're gonna be getting our colors in 1 second. Now to import your logo is pretty simple. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open up where the logo is, which should be in your Finder here. Just give me a second. We'll have it out in a moment. I'm gonna go ahead and let's go ahead and photo selection. Oh, oopsie. Oops, I did not mean to do that. I broke something. Be safe. There you go. Alright, cool. Be safe. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and reopen our project here, and then we're gonna go back and we're gonna go ahead and get that logo, and we're just gonna first, actually, before we open it, because it has a white background, you're just gonna go ahead and open it, you know, using your preview app, and then you go ahead and do markup on that, and you're gonna go ahead and use this magic 1.2 here, or this instant alpha as Apple calls it, and you're gonna go ahead and just select all the white and delete, and you're gonna go ahead and hit save, and you can exit out of it, and you can go back to Xcode, and now you go ahead and put it in there. Now I don't want it to be called Primo logo because that's gonna be tedious every time I need it in the app, so we're just gonna call it logo. All right, now the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna start building out this very view here that you see, but there is one thing missing, and that is our colors, and I'll go ahead and show you guys how to make custom colors right away. And so to do that, you gotta go to Xcode, and you're gonna go ahead and go to assets, and you're gonna go and you're gonna right click and you say new color set. Now for your colors, what you're going to do for this, since we have two colors, you want to separate them into two different colors. It's going to be your primary one, and you're going to have a primary 2, right? And so for your primary 1, what you're going to do, you can delete the dark here. You honestly don't need it, but yeah, I'll just leave it in there, but you don't need it. You're gonna go ahead and do show color panel, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna it's gonna bring up this screen here. You can go ahead and hit the eye drop tool, go ahead and select the color in the designs, and what I really just did right there, I'm not sure if you guys could see it, but what I just did, I'm gonna go on primary 2, and you go ahead and get that eye drop like we just did, and I'm gonna get the most, yeah, there you go, and that's it. That's literally it. So now you got both your colors loaded into your project. What you're going to do, you can go ahead and just make sure you replace this as well, just so that it doesn't mess up when it's in dark mode. That's your primary colors. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and create a new color set. We're gonna call this background, because what we want to do is we want to have a custom background for this dark here. And so we're gonna do the same thing and just select our background there, and that's it. And so that's gonna go ahead and create a nice background color for us. Now we might adjust this background in the future to something else. However, for the sake of this tutorial, whatever we have right now is honestly perfectly fine. So we're gonna go ahead and just continue with what we have. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our onboarding here, right? And we're going to do a few things here because we want to set up our project exactly how our designs show it, right? So we're gonna start off by putting that blob that we created early on. Oh, one more thing actually, before I forget, this is very crucial. We need our font. So we have a custom font in our application here. So you're gonna go ahead and do a new font, and you're gonna go to documents, or wherever your font might be. And here's our fonts. We're gonna go ahead and add them into our app. Now what you want to do, and I might have made a mistake here, we're gonna go ahead and delete them. I'm gonna show you this one more time. You're gonna go to your fonts, and you're gonna select all of them and make sure that you do have copy files to destination in there, and that should put everything in place for us. But this is not enough. For our fonts to work, we need and I'm actually gonna rename these because that name is absolutely bizarre. So I'm gonna go ahead and rename these to something else. So we're gonna do Alba bold, and then Albert S, I guess, sure. And just giving them a name that actually makes sense. So we're gonna go ahead and go to Prima, and we're gonna go to info. We're gonna right click here, we're gonna do add row, and what you want to add, you type in fonts. It's the fonts provided by application. Now this is an array, and so all you just do is you're gonna put in your font name here. So we're gonna have alba.ttf. Then we're gonna go ahead and right click, we're gonna add row, alba bold.ttf. Ooh, that's not an F. All right, ttf, sure, alba s.ttf. And then we're gonna go ahead and edit this one right here. Okay, so now once you have that out of the way, the next thing is to go back, and we'll come back to those fonts in a second. But right now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and set up our onboarding view, right? Finally, we're here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and create a Vstack to begin with. I always kind of choose to start things off with a Vstack, and if I have to reformat it later, I will. But we're gonna start off with the Vstack, and we're gonna make sure that in this Vstack, our blob alignment will be top, because the blob will sit in the Vstack and everything else kind of just fills the entire screen. So we'll make sure we have it that way. I'm gonna go ahead and add our blob in right here, and I'm gonna make sure that our preview is running, just for our sake. And then I'm gonna go ahead and create a Vstack. Right now, the idea with this Vstack is we're gonna put our logo and our button right at the very bottom. Now for the blob here, we want to set a frame. Now as you can see that right now the blob kind of just fills the entire screen. We want to change that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a geometry reader, and we can just do just open parentheses and then close it. And from this geometry reader, we want to get the proxy size. So we're going to go ahead and do let size equal to $0.size. Now if this is kind of confusing, what we just kind of did is we just said proxy in, if you've ever seen this notation before, in, and instead of $, we have proxy. Oopsie. Proxy. So it's the same thing, just a little bit different. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that $sign back in there, right? So with our frame, what we want to do is we want to make the size of the blob the same size as the width of the screen. So well, the height of it should be same size as the width. So we're gonna go ahead and just change the height of it, and we're gonna do size dot width. And so what's that gonna do is it's gonna reduce, the whole entire size of the thing. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to offset it, because right now it's kind of just sitting, kind of randomly. And we do have offset. Alternatively, you could do dot position, and what position would do is it would define the whole entire position of the blob in your X and Y coordinate space. What I would just do is I'll just offset it, because it's easier to kind of work with it later, because the app is going to be really animated. So I'm going to change the X and Y offset of both of these. Now for my excuse me, for my X, I'm kind of going for, I'm going to shift it slightly to the left, about just a quarter way in. So it'll be size dot width, and we're just putting in a quarter, so we'll just do times a quarter, which is 0.25, and hopefully that should work perfectly fine. And then as for our height is going to be slightly different. Again, same thing, we're going to be using the width here, so size dot width. And you really want to get into the habit whenever you're programming these things to work with you want to work with the screen size and percentages and fractions rather than definite values. What this would do is, if you changed over to an iPad, your UI would still look really, really beautiful. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a tenth of this view here, so 0.1. Now notice how right now it's not doing what we want it to do, and that's because our offset is positive. We want to move it in the negative direction for both cases, so we just need to do negative. And as you can see, that's going to position our blob really, really perfectly right where we want it. I might actually argue that a tenth might be too much here, so we might just do like a fifth. There you go, half a tenth, or even what does interesting, what does no offset look like here? Let's see. Oh, whoopsie, wrong direction. Wrong direction. So I do want to move that. I actually want to move it even more up, so I'm actually gonna keep on. Yeah, I want to move it a little higher than it is, because we're going to be animating it, so I want to make sure that by all means, there you go. So 0 point, give or take. I mean, you could make this whatever you want, honestly, but what I'm just trying to go for here is something that looks good, and I think 1.5 looked pretty fine with me here. So we're gonna just leave it there, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and add a foreground style here. Right now, the way a foreground style works is we can put a gradient, and that's pretty much it. So we can do dot linear gradient, and we want to put instead of that one, we want the one that gives us colors, and all we're just putting is color dot primary 1. There you go. And then we're also gonna put dot primary 2, and we're going to move it from the very top leading to top to bottom trailing. Perfect. Now we do want to make sure that by all means now we do want to make sure that for our preview to also show the colors, that in our assets, we also have these. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure we have these set already, and just go back to our onboarding view and let that load. Just because if we don't have any assets in our preview folder, it's just not gonna work. It's not gonna render anything. Okay, so for whatever reason, and let me just make sure this is full screen too. But for whatever reason, our colors are not showing up, but you can alternatively put this in brackets and quotation marks, and we're gonna go ahead and just change the color of this to our asset file, which is primary color or primary one. We're gonna go ahead and just make sure we select that, and then we're gonna do that. Just make sure this is 2. Okay, perfect. And that looks perfectly fine too. So that's completely okay. Now we might have to change this to just bottom because we need a little bit more of that red showing right at the bottom there. All right, that looks good. That looks, I'm pretty happy with it. I don't have much to complain. I think it looks great. And so now what we're gonna do next is we're gonna go ahead and put our logo in there. Now, the easiest thing to just do here is to go in our Vstack here and just create another Vstack with 2 spacers. 2 spacers, and we go ahead and put our logo here, and it would just be logo, and that's it. So it's going to fill the entire screen. We want to make sure this is resizable, and we want to go ahead and do that frame. And remember what I said early on, it's a very good rule of thumb to work with your screen size rather than using definite values. That way it scales up nicely on other devices that have bigger screens and smaller screens. And so we're just gonna make it maybe a half or even a third the width in both directions, and I think a third looks perfectly fine. And finally, in our last Vstack, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do a spacer, 1 spacer, and we're gonna go ahead and add our button. Now this button should say get started, so we're gonna add a label on there, and our label is just gonna be a text that says get started. Now if you notice, our text does have an image there, and so you're gonna be seeing something pretty cool, which is part of our course here, which is new in SWIFTUI iOS 18, and I'll show you guys in a second. But we want to go ahead and format this button real quick. We're gonna do HStack. We're gonna put a text, and we're gonna have an image. Now for this image, you want a system name, and this system name is going to be chevron dot right. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna go ahead and put a little arrow, and we'll see it in a second. There you go, and that's how get started. Now we want to make sure these are separate, so we're gonna go ahead and do a spacer in between them. Now we want to go ahead and adjust this whole button here. We're gonna add padding on it. Now this is not the outside padding, this is the padding that will be on the inside, so we need more padding. And this will be, I believe, vertical padding, because I think it's slightly more taller. So we're gonna do that, and then now we're gonna add a background, right? Again, we're gonna do a radial gradient this time instead of the old linear gradient that we did early on. And it's gonna be the same thing. We're gonna use the same colors here. And now I want to show you something pretty cool. Whenever you have a repetition of anything in your code, you want to refactor it. Now what refactor means is just breaking your code down, making it much more smaller and smaller. So we never have to repeat this color thing if we created, let's say, a new file here. We're going to create a new file, and this would just be just a regular Swift file, and we'll call this constants. Now in our constants file, we're going to make this a class, right? And we just call this constants, and we're going to create a static property here. We'll call this static primary colors, and it'll be an array of color. Now right out of the bat, it's not going to know what this is, so we have to import SWIFTUI. Usually replace foundation, you just put SWIFTUI right there, and make sure that this is an array, so you have to close it off. And so and I did forget the var keyword right there. Okay, and so now you have this static property here that you can use anywhere outside. So instead of putting that, you would do constants dot primary colors, and that's just going to make everything a lot easier for you, a lot better to manage, rather than you having to repeat the same thing over and over again. Now the center really will just be the center, so the center will be dot center, and then you're going to go ahead and you want to start somewhere with your radial gradient, and really you could just start dot 0 and 2 times dot pi, and your gradients are in radians, so it is just important noting that right out of the box too, just so that you know that. And we will have to fix it. Now by default, Swift does a really good job just trying to fill out any safe areas here, but we don't want it to do that, and so we'll fix the button in a second, the colors in a moment. But what we do want it to do is we want it to add padding, right? So now it doesn't just fill the entire thing. And we're gonna go back to this background here, and real quick, right onto the H stack, and we're gonna do dot clip shape. Now we're gonna just choose the regular clip shape, and we're gonna do a regular rect, and we're gonna do corner radius and style. Now for the corner radius, my rule of thumb always is to do the height of the button, which really it's usually like 60 times the height of the button times, and I usually make this instead of 50%, and just so you know what 50% does, 50% makes it a circle. The style will be continuous, and it'll make it circular. I usually make this not circular slightly. I usually just do 40% of the actual height of the button, and that just makes it look nicer. It gives it a little like a better feel to it, rather than just a boring it's not boring. I mean, if you prefer that look, go ahead and do that one, but I prefer just a slightly rounded and slightly less rounded, and less just circular. but that's our button right there. The next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and change the color of our text. So we're gonna go ahead and I usually, in order of everything, I usually do my color of text right before. And what really that is, it's tint color, I believe. It's the tint color you're worried about in this case. You can do a foreground style, and I believe that works too. However, tint color works perfectly fine. I'm gonna go ahead and go to my text here. Or you could, no, I'm gonna go to my text here, and I'm gonna set the font design, because the size is completely fine. I'm gonna set this font design to rounded, and then we're gonna do font weight. We're gonna do bold. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna create a much more loud, I guess, kind of feel to it. And so that's completely fine with me. I think it looks completely good. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and we want to go ahead and make sure this is bold as well. So that's also gotta be bold, and that's just gonna give it a better feel to our app. Right now, what I'm doing here is I'm just adjusting the start radius just so that our button is less well, the color is not just centered on the very, that little tiny dot that we were seeing earlier, and that it actually has a little bit of feel to it. The other thing you might be noticing is that our colors are reversed. So since this is an array, we can actually reverse it right here too. So we just do dot reversed and just adjust the start radius, and I believe like a good 50 should not be okay. 200. Yeah, 200 looks about as close to what I have in the app. I'm gonna do 300 though, so 300 is completely fine. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to add a shadow. So we're gonna do dot shadow. Now we want the one with a little bit more of options, and if you ever need to add more of these options, you just hold Alt, by the way. So that's all. You hold Command, and that allows you to add everything in there. The color of the shadow, now we need to actually create this as a separate color, because colors for dark mode and colors for light mode behave completely differently. So what we need to do is we're gonna do two shadows actually, and before we get so far and so deep into everything, I'm just gonna go ahead and create a group for these things. So we're just gonna do new folder from selection, and we're gonna do colors. That way we are not stuck with a bunch of a long list of asset items, asset catalog. I'm gonna go ahead and do new color set. This is gonna be our button shadow, right? And this is gonna be the shadow we use pretty much everywhere in our app for our buttons. Now, the shadow colors that I use typically is just a full black, just brought down to 25% for light, full black brought down to 50% for black, just because for dark mode, because dark mode is slightly, it behaves differently. I'll move this asset thing all the way down here. I don't need it up here, just because dark mode is slightly darker, and so things need to pop out even more for them to be more visible, and so that's completely fine. We are good with that. And actually, instead of button shadow here, we'll just call this our primary shadow. So we'll do primary shadow. And the reason why I'm not just calling it shadow is because I don't want it to conflict with any preserved names in SWIFTUI. But yeah, for our color here, we're going to do color, and again, same thing, shadow. Now our radius is going to be different here, because it's going to be different throughout the app, but in this case we should be fine with just doing 15 and 0 on the X, 4 on the Y. Let's see how this looks to begin with here, because I don't want to interesting. Okay, I got the name wrong here, so it's primary shadow. Make sure you get your names right. And yeah, now we do see the shadow here. Now if you want to be able to see the shadow more, bring this down, and that's gonna you know, make it pop less. And I think I'm gonna just leave it at 7 too. I think that's pretty fine with me. Now on this, all right, now with SwiftUI iOS 18, it introduced a new symbol animation that you can do on any of these little SF symbols. And in case anybody's wondering, this chevron right here comes from Apple's symbols, SF symbol animation, and SF symbol library, which is just this application here that you can literally download right off of Apple's website. It has quite a wide you know, list of, you know, available to use symbols. And so the one that we're just using is chevron.right. And so with this, you can make it animate. If I hit play here, you can see we can have it animate, and we can make it wiggle, and it'll even wiggle in the direction that we need. So that's it. So what we're just going to do is we're going to do that same thing. We're going to do that symbol effect is the modifier here, symbol effect. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and choose this one with everything. The first thing is, what effect is it? So the effect here is just wiggle. That's what we want. And the options we have, what we want is periodic. So we want it to be periodic, and that just means, I think it's periodic, right? Yeah, sorry, repeating, and then the behavior is periodic. Yeah, there you go. And the way periodic works is, again, it takes in two things here. What is that? Okay, periodic takes in a delay. Now the delay here is seconds, so we want it to wiggle every 3 seconds. So we're just gonna replace the double here with 3. Is active, and we just say activate animations. Activate animations. Okay, all right. And we need to create a variable for this. So this is going to be a first variable for the whole entire app. We're going to do add state var activate animations, and then we're going to set this to false. Now we actually need it to activate, so we're just going to go ahead and go right below the Z stack here, and we're going to do a .on up here, and we're going to go ahead and toggle. And so what that's going to do is it's going to start wiggling. It is important because it will kind of show, you know, our users here, okay, you kind of have to make sure you do this, you know. So it's a little subtle animation, but it works, it does the job, and so it's perfect for what we need here. That's gonna be our onboarding screen. The next thing we need to develop is our UI, so our authentication UI. So the way I kind of just like to do these things is what I would do typically is I would comment this out. I will comment this out, and I'll go ahead and we're gonna go to authentication view for now, and we're gonna go ahead and create this, and we'll come back to this preview thing in a second. But what we want to do is we kind of just want to bring in our blob here. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back here, excuse me, Our blob has a pretty nice size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our custom views and blob view. I'm going to create a new separate struct here. And I'll call this blob view. And then, oopsie, you want to make sure it conforms to view. And you do var blob view, or rather var body some view. Go ahead and paste your blob here, and I'm going to change the name of this to blob shape, and that way it should kind of make better sense of everything, hopefully. So all right, perfect. So we have our blob. We don't need a preview here. The preview is kind of redundant. Let's see, can I find size? Oh, right. Let's make sure we bring in our geometry reader, which all right, when you are in your authentication view, what we want to do here is actually replace this authentication with our onboarding view, right? So that's going to show our onboarding view instead of our authentication view. We're going to go back to onboarding view here, and in the same Vstack, we're going to go ahead and put in our authentication view and just leave it there. Just put it in there and leave it there, and we're going to start dealing with it right here. So a few things we're gonna need to do is we start off with a Vstack. I think you guys should know that now. Now, although we have started off with the Vstack here, what we want to deal with more here is actually a Vstack. So we're gonna go ahead and change this to a Vstack, and we're gonna go ahead and change, just because I like to work with this screen a little bit better with dark mode, and so I'm gonna be wanting to work with dark mode a little bit more. Okay, we're gonna go back here. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and change that to dark. There you go. We need it dark, and I did forget this too, and so that's like a very good reminder. I'm gonna go back to to onboarding here, and Vstack here, we want to go ahead and make this color dot background, and we want to make sure that it ignores safe area, and that should be it. So we go ahead and go back to our authentication view. Hopefully should be the correct background color here that we're working with. So we're gonna wait for it to load. Yep, that looks fine by me. That looks fine, right? I think that's fine. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start by creating our Vstack here, and it is important to kind of have things in the Vstack laid out first before we put in a background. That way we can actually do like good editing on the background. I'm going to start with the login and sign up little selector that we have, that custom selector, and yes, it will be a separate view soon, but in this case we just want to go ahead and set up everything. So we're going to have two things in there, login and sign up. I will say this, it is important because of the way we have aligned this for the blob. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to onboarding, and we need to change a few things here. So we have a Vstack here with a top alignment, right? what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get rid of this alignment, and instead I'm going to go ahead and put this blob in a Vstack with a spacer at the bottom. So I'm going to just do just a regular spacer. That way I should be able to get rid of this Vstack here and the two spacers, this Vstack here. Actually, I do need that Vstack there, but I should be able to set it up like that. And the reason why I just did that is because our onboarding view here was kind of pushing everything up here, including the authentication view, and I don't want it to do that. I kind of want things to just work centered for now. So we have our login text there. Now it's going to be a selector, and so what we do want to do is we want to just make it select between custom items. I'm gonna go ahead and create an enum for now, and this enum will literally just have we'll call this enum auth type, and it will have case. We're gonna have none, and then we're gonna have login, and then we're gonna have sign up. So like that. Now we want to make sure this enum is a, it has a string type to it, and so we're gonna just have none, be nothing, it doesn't matter, and then we're gonna have login be login, and then our sign up will be sign up. And then now we're gonna do case we're gonna do an add a var add state var. Actually, we want this to be binding, so we're gonna do binding var auth type, and this will be an auth type. And initially we'll just have this set to login, and it will make sense in a second. Back in our enum here, we want to do a static var all cases, which would be or rather it's not all cases, but we just call this auth cases or selectable cases, and this will be our this will be our it will take in a type of it will be an array of auth type, and we just make sure it returns dot login and dot sign up. Now the next thing we want to do, bindings do not have default types, that is true. Okay, the next thing we want to do is in our h stack here, we want to actually do a for each, and we're going to iterate through our auth type dot selectable cases, and then we're going to do id, it's going to be self, and then we're just going to go ahead and open curly braces and close curly braces. We're going to make sure that we have a text in there, and the text will say $0.role type. All right, there you go. And so that should in turn give us, I believe, both login and sign up. Something's not right. What's not right here? Right, so we do have a an auth type here, binding value here. So I want to make sure in onboarding we have the same thing going on here. So we're gonna go ahead and do add state var auth type, and we'll make sure that this is auth type, and this will be set to login for now. So we need a default value, and we just go ahead and do fix, and this will be $auth type, and that should fix our preview, and we should see both login and sign up texts right in there, hopefully. Perfect. Okay, so now what we want to do to this is we want to go ahead and customize this a little bit so that it looks better. So we're gonna go ahead and do the font. I'm gonna change the font here. We're gonna make this the font, the title 3. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna make it slightly bigger. We want to make sure this font is bold, and with the current theme of our app, we need a font design rounded. Perfect. And then now we want to make sure the font has, you know, it's sized properly. So we're just gonna do the text is sized properly. I want to do .frame.max width, and this is gonna be infinity. I just gotta make sure I'm still recording here, because that would be tragic. That would be really, really tragic. Okay, we're recording. Okay, all right. Our fonts, our texts are sized properly. Now, we do want to now put that Vstack. We want to customize that background right away. That way we can see things better. So we're just gonna have a padding here. The padding here is slightly different, but we'll keep working. We'll just put a regular padding for now, and we'll fix it in a second. And we're gonna do that background, and the background will be regular material. We might have to make this a different background, maybe ultra thin material. I think I'll do regular here, because regular is more thick, and so it would, yeah, that works better off with what we're trying to go for here. So we're just gonna leave it at regular material. All right, the next thing we need is we need to go ahead and add a padding after. So that should push everything inside. And then next, right below that background, we want to go ahead and clip our shape. Again, same thing we had earlier, the rect, corner radius, and style. Now the corner radius for all my backgrounds here, they're always typically the width of it, 1/10 of the whole width of it. But for now, we're gonna hard code this. We will fix it in a follow-up video, but we're gonna go ahead and just hard code it. I'm gonna do 100 for now. Hopefully we can make that work as we go. Actually, 100 is crazy. Let's do 40. Right, 40 is perfectly fine. So we're gonna do 40 for now, and then we're gonna add a shadow. So we're gonna do the shadow, and then our colors will be color, primary, shadow. And then our radius will be different here, because it is not a button. It's different from our typicals. But yeah, we're gonna do that for now, and then hopefully we should be able to see things popping out a little bit as we go. We may need to readjust our background color here momentarily, but we will be back to that in a second. Now, in our Hstack here, we want to go ahead and adjust the buttons so that they can actually be selectable. And so to do that, all we just got to do is we got to put this in a Z stack. So we're gonna go ahead and put this stuff in a Z stack, except for our frame here. Our frame needs to stay outside. And because now this is in a closure, we do need to make sure we have the actual tab here. So we'll just call this tab in. So, and instead of $0, we're gonna do tab. And now I'm gonna go ahead and add color here. It's just gonna be our selection here. So we're gonna do color dot primary, and that's gonna put a really ugly white color on there on both of them, but we'll fix it in a second. Firstly, we're gonna go outside, or actually we can stay on that color, the primary, and do opacity 0.15. So 15% is what we need on that one.
Sorry, I can't do that.
And then the next thing we want to do is we actually want to change this from color to rounded rectangle, and it has those properties of ours we had earlier. And then this primary here, we actually want to put that in a fill modifier. And then now we just do continuous, and our corner radius here will be, let's say 14 for now. Perfect. Okay. And now what we're gonna do on our frame here, we're gonna set a height, because you know it is screaming at us that we do not have a height. And we're just gonna set this height to say 44. All right, and that's completely fine. And now what we need to do is we need to make sure that this rounded rectangle only shows up when it's needed to be shown up. So we're gonna just say if auth type is equal to tab, then show it. It's that simple. So that's literally it. And so now with this kind of functionality, what we're able to do is we can go on the Vstack here. Right after the Vstack, we're gonna do the content shape. The reason why is because if we're gonna click in here, we're gonna be clicking around here, this sign up. And what I'll just do for now, just do content shape rect, and I'll just show it and I'll demonstrate it in a second. We're gonna do on temp gesture. Make sure you add an animation on there. It just makes it look sweeter. It's that important. And then we do tab auth type will be equal to tab. And so now if I click sign up, you see it switches everything really nice. However, if I were to comment this out, this content shape, I did not mean to do that. If I were to comment that out and press anywhere outside, it wouldn't allow me to do anything useful. So what I do need to do is to have that in there. That way I can click even around, as long as it's, you know, close to anywhere it's sign up, it should be perfectly fine. However, it's not enough because the animation is kind of just jumping between the two places. So what we want to do is we want to add a namespace. Just do var animation, and we're just gonna go ahead and copy that. Okay, and we're gonna go to here, this rounded rectangle, and we're gonna do that matches geometry effect in, and we're gonna do ID, and we'll just call this selection. It doesn't matter what you call it. It does, but not in this context. And we're just in animation, and we're just linking it back to our namespace. So now it has a really nice animation here that it switches between, and so that's really nice. It gets to do exactly what we wanted to do, which is perfect for our application in this case. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and add our text fields, but before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole thing here, and we're going to go ahead and create that custom view that we mentioned earlier, and we're just gonna delete this. Oopsie, I did not mean to do that. We're gonna delete this like that. Is that the whole 8? Yeah, we're gonna delete the whole thing, absolutely the whole thing. Make sure you copy it first. I did copy it, so just so you know, I copied the whole thing. And then we're gonna go ahead and do new file from template, and we're gonna go ahead and create a new SWIFTUI view, and we're gonna do custom selector. and instead of custom selector, I'm gonna call this custom selector view. Go ahead and paste that Hstack right where the text is, and make sure you have this named properly here, custom selector view as well. Now we're gonna have to fix things here because obviously we broke a lot of stuff, so we're gonna be doing something a bit different here that we haven't done, and I'm gonna be showing you guys exactly how to do it. So what we want to do here is we want to create what they call generic types. Now generic types allow us, instead of just having this just be an auth type, we can pass in anything. It could be numbers, it could be other, hashable objects. And so we're just gonna convert this struct here to, a hashable type, or just a custom generic type. And to do that, we just go on the struct here and we open and close these little greater than, less than symbols, and we write T colon and make sure that the type is hashable. And that's just what that hashable means there. Hashable means, at the very, high level, it can be compared between two objects. It can be identified between two objects or two types. So I want to make sure this is hashable. And then for our auth type here, instead of auth type, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do add binding var selection, and make sure that our selection is just T, just like this T here. So that's just what we're doing there. And then we're gonna have items, and you get it, you guess it, you just do var items, or not times, items will be an array of T, and that's literally it. So you never have to worry about anything else here. It's really just that. It does mean we have to change this from auth type to selection, selection. And then we'll also have to change this auth type here to selection. And then here, instead of putting auth type selectable cases, you want to put items. And we'll just change this items to item, just so that we're kind of uniform with everything. So item. And what we're just doing here is we're just making this whole class, or this whole selector that we made, we're making it so that it's generic. Anything can be fit into it, and also spell items correctly. There you go. All right, items. And hopefully that's going to change something here. Now for the text here, what we actually want to do is want to say string, and then we're going to say describing item. And so what that's just going to do is going to take whatever item is, because it's a hashable, it's going to make sure it converts it to a readable string. And then the last thing is we do want our namespace. I'm not going to write a new one. I'm just going to go ahead and go back here, delete the old one, make sure I copy it first, and then paste it in there, and it should still behave the same thing. So now we can go back to onboarding view. And so in our onboarding view, all we have to do is say custom selector view, and it's going to take in two items. It's going to take in our selection, which remains our auth type, and our items will be, in this case, auth type dot selectable cases. And again, it works exactly how it was working before. It's just much more neater and much more cleaner. Now next things, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create those email and password text fields that I mentioned earlier. Now we will need to import some icons in a little bit too, but for now let's go ahead and create those two fields that we said we put. So we're gonna go ahead and do email, and we're just gonna do system image. And I don't think email is a thing, so it's probably envelope dot field. There you go. Yeah, there you go. And then what we want to do is text, and our text here will just say email. Actually, it should not be text, it should be text field email, and then it takes in that placeholder and the text. And so we'll just do, for now, we'll just do constant, nothing in there. So we'll go ahead and fill it up soon with its proper binding values, but for now we'll just do an empty one like that. And so now we need to make sure we customize it so that it fits with everything else nicely. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna add some padding here, and the padding here is again slightly different than normal, but we're gonna do the pad